Imagine this. A royal icon turned Hollywood star with a Netflix deal worth millions. A show that's supposed to rewrite her story, only to see it crash so hard it gets wiped off the internet. Meghan Markle's With Love. Meghan Season 2 was her big moment, but what happened behind the scenes left Netflix scrambling to erase a $5 million mistake. From a Christmas disaster on a Malibu beach to a finale so cringeworthy it made test audiences walk out. This is the jaw-dropping saga of Meghan's Hollywood flop one. You won't believe until you see it. When Meghan Markle signed her Netflix deal, the world watched with bated breath. This was her chance to step into the spotlight once again, not as a royal, but as a Hollywood producer. The deal wasn't small either. Millions of dollars were on the table, a huge show of faith from Netflix in her star power. With Love, Meghan Season 2 was supposed to mark her grand return to the limelight, proving she could not only captivate audiences, but also create something that would stand out in a crowded entertainment landscape. From the get-go, Netflix handed Meghan the keys to the kingdom, a big budget, creative control, and total freedom to structure the episodes however she saw fit. The idea was simple. Season 2 would follow her journey as she navigated life post-royal family, rebuilding her brand while sharing her personal story with the world. The premise was full of potential, but there was one catch. The road to redemption in Hollywood isn't as smooth as it might seem. Meghan's vision for Season 2 was ambitious. Instead of taking a more traditional approach to filming, she decided to shoot all the episodes at once, treating it more like a single, extended shoot rather than breaking it into individual episodes. This decision was bold, and in theory, it could have streamlined the production process. However, this was just the beginning of what would turn into a massive misstep. At first glance, it seemed like everything was going according to plan. Meghan had been given the creative freedom she craved, and the production was well-funded, with Netflix eager to see her bring her vision to life. But the behind-the-scenes reality was far less glamorous. What Meghan thought would be a seamless production turned into a series of miscalculations, with the biggest misstep coming from her decision to shoot the entire season in one go. Filming everything in bulk might sound efficient, but it quickly became clear that this approach wasn't as effective as Meghan had hoped. Instead of building the show in digestible, well-paced episodes, the entire season became one long, disjointed production. The end result was a bloated mess, with no clear structure or flow, leaving viewers struggling to connect with the story. Even worse, the show bombed during test screenings. Not just once, not twice, but a staggering 7 times. Each time, the feedback was brutal. Viewers were confused, disengaged, and unimpressed. Critics and audience members alike criticized the show for feeling flat, lifeless, and lacking the spark that Meghan had hoped would shine through. The signs of trouble were everywhere, but the biggest disaster was still to come. The final scene. The grand finale of With Love. Meghan Season 2 was meant to be Meghan Markle's show-stopping moment, a flashy, over-the-top celebration of everything she had worked for. Netflix had sunk a staggering $5 million into this beach shoot. It was supposed to be her big Hollywood moment, a Malibu beach, complete with Christmas trees, fairy lights, and a star-studded cast. A lavish production, filmed over 3 days with drones, stylists, and celebrity cameos from A-listers and faded stars trying to stay relevant. But what they got wasn't a triumph. It was an absolute disaster. The scene was a chaotic mishmash of holiday cheer, awkward choreography, and cringeworthy moments. Meghan, clad in a red swimsuit and a white apron, was meant to channel Pamela Anderson's iconic cooking show, grilling sausages while rapping to a remix of Christmas classics. Picture this: Meghan Markle, surrounded by oversized candy canes, lip-syncing to a holiday trap beat, attempting a slow-motion strut while snow machines accidentally sprayed foam into a celebrity guest's eye. But it didn't stop there. Continuity errors abounded. One moment, a Christmas tree was lit. The next, it mysteriously vanished. The lighting, intended to make Meghan appear angelic, instead washed out everything around her. And despite all the glitz and glam of the production, the result was nothing short of cringe-inducing. Test audiences called it career suicide on camera, with one even walking out of the screening. It was clear this finale was beyond repair. Netflix had spent millions to create the perfect send-off, but instead, they had a scene so bad that not even the most dedicated fans would want to see it. The moment that was meant to redeem Meghan's Hollywood journey became the moment that made everyone wonder, how did it go so wrong? When Netflix executives saw the final product, they knew they were in trouble. The Malibu Beach finale was so disastrous that they couldn't risk releasing it, even as a deleted scene. With a few days left before the launch, Netflix pulled the plug, $5 million down the drain, and a nightmare on the horizon. The decision to cut the scene wasn't taken lightly. Meghan Markle, who had poured her heart into the sequence, was furious. This wasn't just a creative choice for her. She believed that the finale was her moment, her big comeback. It was the kind of flashy, high-energy conclusion that she thought would silence critics and prove that she still had what it took to make it in Hollywood. But when producers informed her that the scene was being axed, she reportedly went into a full-blown meltdown. She begged Netflix to reconsider, insisting that the fans deserved to see her vision. She argued that the beach shoot was a testament to her creative freedom, a powerful statement of who she was. But Netflix executives weren't having it. They had already seen the devastating feedback and knew that releasing the finale would not only tarnish the show's reputation, but also risk another PR disaster. The aftermath was immediate. Inside Netflix's glass towers, execs scrambled to salvage the situation. A frantic rewrite ensued, and in place of the beach disaster, they put together a bland, soulless montage of unused B-roll footage. No celebration, no closure, just an awkward, quiet fade to black, barely enough to meet the runtime. It was clear that the original vision for With Love, Meghan had crumbled, and in its place was a lifeless, half-hearted attempt to patch things together. But despite their efforts, the damage was already done. It wasn't just that the finale was bad, it was unwatchable. The scene was riddled with errors that were impossible to ignore. And these weren't minor slip-ups. We're talking full-on, laughable mistakes that made it clear this production had gone off the rails. For starters, the continuity issues were downright embarrassing. In one shot, the Christmas tree was sparkling and lit up like a holiday dream, but in the very next shot, it had completely vanished, as if it was never there. Meanwhile, the snow machine, meant to create a winter wonderland effect, malfunctioned and sprayed foam straight into one of the celebrity guests' eyes. To make matters worse, Meghan herself appeared to be totally out of sync with the entire spectacle. The lip syncing was off, the lighting was bizarre, and the overall vibe felt completely disconnected from the show's supposed tone. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Meghan had specifically requested the lighting to make her look angelic, but the result was far from that. Instead of creating a soft, flattering glow, it washed out everything in the shot, making the entire scene feel flat and lifeless. What was supposed to be her big, shining moment instead became a visual disaster. And let's not forget about the celebrities who were roped into this mess. Some of them seemed visibly confused about what they were even doing there. One guest was reportedly so baffled by the entire setup that they thought they were filming a holiday PSA, not a reality show. Another walked off the set after an hour, citing creative differences, which was a polite way of saying, "What the hell is going on here?" The scene, meant to be a fun, festive finale, ended up being nothing more than a clumsy, painful spectacle that was beyond saving. Yet, despite all the mounting issues, Meghan remained convinced that this was her masterpiece. The whole team knew it was a train wreck, but no one had the courage to tell her the truth until it was far too late. Once Netflix made the decision to scrap the disastrous finale, the fallout was swift and relentless. What was supposed to be a high-profile, triumphant return for Meghan Markle had quickly spiraled into a full-blown PR nightmare. The beach shoot, complete with Christmas trees, celebrity cameos, and a ridiculous holiday trap beat, was now locked away in Netflix's vault, never to see the light of day. And what replaced it? A rushed, uninspired montage of unused B-roll footage, barely enough to fill the runtime and certainly nothing that could salvage the reputation of "With Love, Meghan." But the real consequences went beyond just a bad finale. The damage to Meghan's standing in Hollywood was immediate and lasting. Her carefully crafted image as a former royal with untapped potential was suddenly shattered. Instead of a glamorous comeback moment, she was now the woman behind the most expensive deleted scene in Netflix's history. The show, which had generated so much buzz and excitement, quickly turned into a case study of how not to manage fame and how quickly a career can derail when things go wrong. Internally, Netflix began distancing itself from the "With Love, Meghan" brand. Marketing budgets were slashed. Press junkets, once thought to be the next big promotional push, were abruptly canceled. Even those working closest to the project started pulling away, trying to avoid being associated with the show's collapse. The PR teams working for Netflix even ghosted several outlets that had been requesting interviews, no one wanting to explain why a $5 million finale had been scrapped without a trace. The whole situation was being treated like an ugly secret that they hoped would simply fade away. The public, however, wasn't so forgiving. Once the trailer for season 2 dropped, the internet went wild. Clips from the final shoot were rapidly shared across TikTok and YouTube, with reaction channels, fashion bloggers, and pop culture analysts having a field day. The finale, never intended for release, became a viral sensation, mocked, parodied, and ridiculed. Meghan Markle's name, once trending for glamorous reasons, was now trending for all the wrong ones. Back at her mansion, things weren't any better. Meghan reportedly felt completely betrayed, not just by Netflix, but by her own team, who had failed to speak up during production. She had walked into every meeting convinced she was crafting something iconic, but when the reality hit, it was too late to salvage the wreckage. Her team's silence during the production had led her to believe the project was a success, only to have the bubble burst in the most public way imaginable. After the bombshell decision to cut the finale, Meghan Markle and her team didn't give up on the idea of salvaging the situation. In private conversations, they tried to reframe the entire debacle, hinting that Netflix was simply afraid of her creative freedom. They suggested that the real reason for the show's failure wasn't the cringeworthy content, but rather the platform's hesitation to let her express herself fully. Meghan's camp even floated the idea of releasing the original finale independently, perhaps on YouTube or as a special. It was an attempt to reclaim the narrative, to show the world that her vision was worth seeing, regardless of Netflix's rejection. But Netflix wasn't having it. The streaming giant had already sunk millions into this production, and there was no way they were going to let the fiasco see the light of day, not even in a controlled, independent release. Their legal team shut down any talk of releasing the beach scene without hesitation. The footage wasn't Meghan's to distribute. It belonged to Netflix, and they were determined to keep the disastrous finale buried. Behind closed doors, Meghan's team pushed back, trying to get Netflix to reconsider. But the power imbalance was clear. With the millions already spent and the public backlash continuing to grow, Netflix wasn't about to let the scene, still referred to as Pam's Folly, internally resurface. For Meghan, the dream of having the finale shared with her fans was dashed, and instead, she had to face the reality that her Hollywood comeback was now tarnished beyond repair. It wasn't just a bad scene being erased, it was a career-defining moment she would never get back. The aftermath of With Love, Meghan Season 2 didn't end with the scrapped finale. The damage Meghan Markle suffered extended far beyond just a botched show. It began to affect her entire Hollywood trajectory. Once a royal with endless potential, Meghan was now seen as the woman whose grand return to Hollywood had flopped spectacularly. The 5 million finale was wiped off the face of the earth, but the stain it left on her public image was undeniable. Netflix, once a key player in her comeback, quietly started distancing itself from the show. Marketing budgets that had once been allocated to promote With Love, Meghan were slashed, and press junkets that were supposed to give the show a big push were suddenly canceled. It was a full retreat from the platform that had initially placed so much faith in Meghan's star power. The Netflix PR machine, which was once focused on helping her shine, has now turned its attention elsewhere, and the internet was unforgiving. Even though the finale was never officially released, clips from the trailer, along with countless parodies and memes, spread like wildfire across social media. Reaction channels, pop culture commentators, and fashion bloggers dissected every moment of Meghan's performance. Her awkwardness on screen, the bizarre outfits, and the sheer cringeworthiness of the Malibu beach shoot were now fodder for viral content. The damage to her reputation was growing by the day, and once promising projects began to disappear, the numbers didn't help either. With Love, Meghan might have briefly cracked the top 10 on Netflix, but it quickly faded from the rankings as viewers turned away in droves. Most didn't make it past the second episode, with reviews describing the show as soulless, egotistical, and tone-deaf. Criticism poured in, and one headline summed it up perfectly. Netflix should have left this on the cutting room floor. The harsh truth. No amount of marketing could revive a show that no one wanted to watch. The real kicker came when whispers began circulating that Netflix had considered pulling the entire season. Legal issues would have complicated that decision, but the fact that it was even on the table spoke volumes. Instead, the season limped along, hoping to scrape back some of the investment, but Meghan's Hollywood prospects were already shifting. Her contract with Netflix was quietly re-evaluated. The promising multi-show deal she had once secured was now paused, and any talk of spin-offs or specials quickly vanished. For a time, it seemed as though Meghan's career was stalled indefinitely, all thanks to a single, disastrous season that turned her potential triumph into a cautionary tale. In the end, Meghan Markle's Hollywood dream came crashing down in a way no one could have predicted. What was meant to be her grand comeback, her chance to prove she could reinvent herself beyond the royal spotlight, turned into a cautionary tale about the price of fame. From a 5 million disaster to a finale so bad it was buried in Netflix's vault, With Love, Meghan's season 2 became more about what went wrong than what could have been. The aftermath is clear. The internet never forgets, and the damage to Meghan's reputation lingers. What should have been a triumphant return to the limelight instead turned into a viral train wreck that left her image tarnished. For Netflix, the show was a costly failure, and for Meghan, it was a reminder of how quickly things can go off track when ambition collides with reality. Now, as Hollywood moves on to the next big star, Meghan's story stands as a stark warning. Even with millions of dollars, creative freedom, and a star-studded team behind you, the journey back to the top is never guaranteed. Sometimes it's not about what you want to create. It's about knowing when to let go before it all unravels. Meghan's aspirations and the reality of her business became impossible to ignore. Instead of pivoting and scaling back, Meghan pushed forward with more lavish spending, more high-end partnerships, and more expensive promotions. But none of it worked. And in the midst of this, Tyler Perry's public demand for repayment wasn't just a wake-up call for Meghan. It was a direct challenge to everything she had built. Her refusal to address the crisis spoke volumes. It didn't look like a dignified retreat. It looked like someone who had nothing left to defend. Meghan, who had once taken center themselves from the brand quietly. The deeper question no one dared to ask out loud was whether this failure was a reflection of Meghan herself. Had her celebrity status clouded her judgment? Had her unwillingness to adapt and listen led to a business that couldn't sustain itself? The death of As Ever wasn't just the end of a brand. It was the complete collapse of Meghan Markle's up the market was quietly erased from existence. The website went dark. Social media accounts fell silent. Retail partners pulled As Ever from their shelves without explanation, and collaborations that once seemed like a perfect fit vanished without a trace. It wasn't just a failed fortune, empowerment, and ambition. But in the blink of an eye, it turned into a lesson on the dangers of unchecked ambition and the price of a carefully curated image that didn't have the foundation to back it up. Tyler Perry's public demand for repayment wasn't just about the $16 million. It was the moment everything. The question remains, what's next for Meghan Markle? And will she ever be able to rebuild the empire that once seemed so destined for success? As the echoes of "Pay Back My Money" continue to reverberate, the story of Meghan's Hollywood dream serves as a stark reminder of the fine line between ambition and reality.